I said the Lions won a game.
It's Great Lakes Football Podcast with Brett, Kory, and Vince. Go on and grab your headphones and take a listen to this. Welcome to the GLSF ball. You got Brett, Kory, and Vince here. Week of Christmas, bowl games, NFL, COVID rampage. Here we go.
Kory Arnouts. We got it all, baby. Go Bulldogs with the championship.
And we're back. We're a bunch of idiots. Great Lakes State Football, episode 5. As Brett and Kory just introduced us here, we are going to be talking everything football in the beautiful Great Lakes State from the last week. And we have a guest, as Mr. Kory Schraben mentioned. We have another Kory coming on to the podcast tonight, a Mr. Kory Arnouts of Corey, not Kory, right? Our Kory, our in-house co-host, Kory Schraben, is a Kory. A very, very controversial conversation. He might agree with me. Is the correct spelling of Kory. So we will be having Mr. Kory Arnouts coming on a little bit later here in the episode. He is a former Ferris State Bulldog. We're going to bring him on to talk about his alma mater winning the national championship, as well as his career path, currently going from a college football player, coaching high school for a couple of years, and now he's a referee, MHSAA referee here for football in the state of Michigan. So we're going to be talking about all that with him. But before we get to our guest, we are going to talk about a few other levels of football, starting with high school signees. We had the early signing period recently, which for our in-state D1 teams, Central, Eastern, Western, Michigan, and Michigan State, did have some signings from the state of Michigan, and some big high-profile early signees from out of the state as well. So before we kind of get into our conversation here, just thought I'd bring up a couple numbers. Central Michigan signed 14 total players, 6 from the state of Michigan. Eastern Michigan signed 5. 1 from the state of Michigan. Western Michigan signed 12, 3 from Michigan. The University of Michigan signed 22, and very interestingly, only signed 1 player that I could find from the state of Michigan. Michigan State also signed 22 and brought in 6 from the state of Michigan. So, Brett, Kory, early thoughts here on any of these signees?
Yeah, so Michigan only brought in 1 from the state of Michigan, Will Johnson, number 1 player in Michigan. Pretty much just added him to a super deep secondary recruiting class for the University of Michigan, which was great to see. Michigan State, on the other hand, pulled a bunch of kids from the state of Michigan. Very good D tackle from up in Essexville. The running back at West Bloomfield, who followed up on the footsteps of Donovan Edwards, who went to Dylan Tatum's his name. He went to Twitter and voiced his
very interesting statement from him.
I am not Mr. Edwards. I am my own. So, Mr.
Well,
Tatum,
I don't blame him. He basically said, I mean, it sounded like it was a justified response. He said, quit asking me about Donovan Edwards, because it sounded like every time people were interviewing him about his signing to Michigan State or just, his career at West Bloomfield, that people kept bringing up Donovan Edwards. I can imagine he was probably a little frustrated as a 17, 18-year-old, a little frustrated with that. But
yeah. Anyway, State had also a very good class. Theirs was a little bit different. They started in like that 18, 19 range, ended in 21. Michigan started in the 13, 14 range and ended in 9. But like we've learned year over year, it really doesn't fucking matter unless you're winning.
The crazy thing is this is players. Like one of the best classes. I mean, if you look at going to Michigan State here, if you look at like the classes that D'Antonio signed, this would be like the second or third class in terms of rank under D'Antonio. Mm-hmm. And I mean, as you just mentioned, I mean, D'Antonio was kind of the epitome of doing more with less. I mean, he always brought in all these overlooked kids. I mean, at the end of the day, I think those rankings are very objective, subjective, excuse me. Yeah. They're very subjective. I mean,
gotta win.
yeah, at the end of the day, you gotta turn it into success. I mean, just bringing in talent doesn't always necessarily mean it's going to translate to the field, but it's still impressive. Michigan's recruiting class, very impressive. Being they were top 10 nationally, which is pretty cool, and very cool coming off the season that they're having, which still a little bit left to play, obviously.
Yeah, so just a couple of my thoughts. Looking at, with the early signing day, it was introduced in 2019, so it's been a couple of years so far. Like Vince, you mentioned, Central, Eastern, and Western, they all had signed like right around 20 or less guys, whereas Michigan State loaded up most of their full recruiting class. If I'm a kid that's going to Central, Western, or Eastern, I guess it's a case-by-case basis, but I would think that I might hold out on signing at this point in time in December, because there's going to be a lot of these bigger schools, especially like smaller Big Ten teams, that might have missed out on their top 5 or top 3 guys in a certain position. Mm-hmm. And you could roll in with a late offer from larger school. Even talking to Jaleel last week, he had mentioned he had a late Wisconsin offer, and he didn't really acknowledge it because he was going to Cincinnati. He was committed to Cincinnati, and his case was a little bit different. But I find it interesting that a lot of these smaller schools, especially D1 schools, these kids are signing right away. And I know they want to go to school and get an early start. But ultimately everyone's goal is to play like high level Power 5 football. So I find that interesting. And D2 and D3 levels, kids aren't, early signing day has nothing to do with those schools.
Early signings to get those kids into school early too, like we talked about.
Yeah, but I just find it interesting. If you're, like I mentioned, if you have the opportunity at a potential Power 5, like Big Ten school, why are you signing so early? But if you love the school, that's a whole nother story. But yeah, to kind of touch back on the MAC schools, Central had the second best recruiting class in the MAC. They did actually just lose their DOP, DOF, I guess, Director of Football Operations, the DOFO, Albert, I think Karshnia. I might have butchered his last name. He is now replacing Courtney Morgan at Michigan as the recruiting coordinator. So it was nice that he was able to keep his fingers on a little bit of Central's class and keep him up there top in the MAC. And I'm excited to see what he does at Michigan. As far as Michigan, they only signed one kid from the state. It was the top kid in the state, Will Johnson, as everybody knows. But what a lot of people might not know is they were able to flip a kid from Oregon. His name is Darius Clemens. He's a 6'3", 6'4" wide receiver, runs right around a 4.35, 4.4 40. The kid's highlight tape is extremely impressive. He's just dusting kids.
What was his name again?
Darius Clemens.
And he's from East Lansing.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing. Although there's only one kid graduating from the state, he is actually from the state. He's good friends with Andrell Anthony. They were in the East Lansing School District or Lansing School District together growing up as kids. So that was a nice relationship that he had to bring him back to the state of Michigan. So I'm interested to see how he pans out. And also Michigan State. Michigan State had one of their top recruiting classes they've had over the last few years. They actually signed the most 4-stars in a recruiting class, and there's still some recruiting left, but they signed 5 4-stars this year, which is their most since 2016, which is like towards the end of the peak of D'Antonio's career. So
yeah, and that 2016 class, actually, I think all those kids left. It didn't pan out, which is crazy.
There was some trouble with a couple of those guys from Detroit King and a couple other things, but yeah. Nonetheless, very impressive for Michigan State. They signed 4 out of the top 10 kids in the state of Michigan, which is a little bit unusual. But yeah, nonetheless, it's early signing day is always exciting, before the bowl games and all the coaching changes going on. So I think it's been a nice touch to football.
One of the things that stands out to me the most about Michigan State is they brought in 7 kids from Georgia. That to me is just crazy. I know there's a lot of reports on how influential Mel Tucker is in the, in that region of the country in terms of recruiting because of his time with Saban and at Georgia and Alabama and, in the NFL and things like that. But that's just wild that he went into the heart of the SEC where those teams all recruit and took 7 kids from that state, from Georgia. That's just crazy to me. obviously all of them were 3 stars. None of them were 4 stars or 5 stars, but still, I mean,
the thing that I liked most about Mel Tucker's class, he's finally reaching out kind of away from the Midwest, which is great for Michigan State. I think it's going to bring in some talent. But they're all big kids. I don't know if like you really dove deep into them. I mean, you're talking 6'2", 6'3", 6'1", 6'4", 6'5". They're all bigger kids. And they're all a little bit undersized from a weight perspective, but they all have big frames. So it looks like Tucker's going out and like trying to get some big bodies. Because if you look corner, tight end 6'4", safety 6'2", safety 6'4".
I mean, they have an offensive lineman at 6'7", and another one at 6'8".
Yeah, so he went and got some size, which is great to see. They only had one big flip. It's DN Zion. I'm gonna butcher his name. Hold on.
Young.
Yeah, Zion Young. He was their big flip, which is good for him. So, or them, I should say.
Yeah, the one thing they really need are defensive backs. And in terms of this recruiting class, I know transfers will kind of fill things out a little bit more, but he brought in a cornerback out of Georgia. He brought in a safety he brought in 2 safeties out of Georgia, another cornerback from Florida. So he did bring in some defensive backs. It'll be interesting to see if any of that translates right away or not, because that's the biggest need.
They claimed 4 off the portal, a DN, 2 interior linebackers.
And the Wisconsin running brought in that running back from Wisconsin, Jalen Berger.
Yeah.
It is interesting looking over at their class. Living on the west side of the state, I wasn't aware that Grand Haven had an offensive tackle that's committed and signed to Michigan State, 6'8", 280 pounds, 3-star recruit. That's a big boy. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And there was a kid from Cedar Springs that was actually getting some Big Ten love. He might be a 2023 kid though. I don't remember his name, but he took a visit to Michigan State and posted some pictures with Mel Tucker.
It'll be interesting to see. And I know we had this conversation, and this whole early signing period obviously is relatively new in the last 3 years. It's just very interesting to me to kind of see then in February what kind of gets sorted out in February. Like, I think it was Brett, you just mentioned, like some of these kids that signed so early, what does that mean in terms of, did they just lose out on a bigger offer because they took an offer so early? I don't know. It'd be kind of, but especially with the transfer portal now, it's just very with all these kids who have an extra year of eligibility with COVID and the transfer portal. Recruiting is so much more different now. It's just very interesting. I mean, speaking of which, I mean, we didn't bring this up, but Brett's brother, Cole Johnson, who we mentioned on the podcast before, just finished up his last year and graduated from Hillsdale College, had a successful career at D2, and actually is grad transfer and announced this last week to Central Michigan as well. So that's a very interesting aspect of college football right now.
Yeah, the transfer portal is great, especially for people that are in a tough situation with the coach leaving or they're graduating, like Cole, for example. Hillsdale doesn't have a graduate program, and he had a pretty successful career at Hillsdale, so it gave him an opportunity to fulfill his dream of playing FBS football. So, and there's a number of kids that have received that opportunity, so I think it's a blessing that the transfer portal has been.
Yeah, absolutely. I look forward to kind of seeing how that kind of works out in the years to come, and once COVID has kind of gone away. In terms of that year of eligibility for college football, in 4 or 5 years from now, I'm hoping things kind of even out a little bit as this kind of settles down.
Yeah,
it is seriously affecting high school recruits right now.
Yeah, it'll calm down. It won't take 2 or 3 years though. I think it's going to take probably 8 to 10 years because
it's going to take at least 5 to 6 because
there's going to be some
kids
COVID,
who have that year of
COVID lag. There's going to be some COVID lag. So.
Yeah, a lot of free extra years out there.
One of the last things I want to bring up is, obviously we kind of talk about Greater Lansing, mid-Michigan football a lot because all 3 of us went to Grand Ledge. So we always like to highlight that area of the state of Michigan because I don't think it gets talked about enough, overlooked often. Ambrose Wilson, running back, defensive back, kind of athlete out of East Lansing, signed with Central Michigan. So pretty cool. Malachi Davis, out of Holt signed early with Toledo. So some early signees. Tommy McIntosh out of DeWitt signed with Wisconsin. And then obviously Ty Holtz, their quarterback, early signee to Brown. I don't know if I missed any Greater Lansing area commits, early signees to major Division I football or FCS, but those were the four that I'm aware of off the top of my head, unless I missed one. You guys can correct me if I missed one.
Yep. Got it.
Well, all right. You guys have anything else you want to add here on the transfer portal early signees?
One other little tidbit.
2022.
It is interesting that a lot of these kids are signing early. They have an opportunity to enroll at these schools and start practicing here as soon as they graduate high school. So like Will Johnson, for example, he can start practicing in Michigan in preparation for the playoff semifinal game on December 31st, New Year's Eve. So that's kind of a fun little experience that he'll be able to have when he first becomes a Wolverine. They'll be practicing for a national championship. And also another thing too, if these guys get into this program and they go through spring ball and everything, and it's not for them, they can just go ahead and transfer somewhere else and not lose any eligibility and start fresh in August. So there's a lot of pros to this. There's some cons too, especially from the coaching perspective.
Yeah, and actually, I know the three of us have talked about it, and we would like to bring on Brett's brother as football kind of settles down here. We would like to bring him on as like a personal and first person's perspective in terms of talking about this whole process and people benefiting from it. But I mean, someone we just brought on last week, Brett brought up Jaleel. I mean, he was our guest last week. I mean, Jaleel is someone who would have benefited greatly from the current format of college recruiting, signing, and just the layout and format nationally of how college football is working right now for high school kids and in terms of going to college in general to play college football.
When Jaleel left Eastern Michigan, he either had to transfer down or sit a year.
That's another good point.
You wouldn't have to do that.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, there used to be no other option, even if your coach left.
Yeah, I think, and this is an episode maybe the three of us will in the off season here. Maybe this is something that we'll have a whole 30 to 40 minute segment on, is talking about and debating, maybe bring someone on, because I think it is a topic that we could talk about for a long time and debate the pros and cons. I think all three of us would probably agree that we're all on the side of this all being a positive for players. And I really hate the people that try to sit there and make this seem like it's a negative for the players. And it's like all these coaches who are making millions of dollars are allowed to just leave at the flip of a coin or, the tip of a hat, and, whatever idiom you want to use, but like players have to just sit there and suck it up. I mean, they went there for the coach and the school because that coach brought them in, and their coach and their coaching staff has left, but now they have to stay there. Like, I don't agree with that. I'm very much for this whole format. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a game. Let them play it how they want to play it. Well, all right. Unless you guys have anything else to add, you want to move on to Division III football talk here for a little bit?
Yes, sir. Moving on up.
Let's talk about the Britons.
We're going to talk about the Albion Britons here. So Albion College, out of the MIAA D3 conference here in the state of Michigan. We talked about them a few weeks ago, obviously won the MIAA championship this year for the second year in a row, and went to the playoffs. Unfortunately, got beat pretty handily by Wisconsin lacrosse, who ended up losing the next round to the national runner-up North Central. But Albion, pretty cool distinction here. As we talked about a few weeks ago, the MIAA kind of struggles on a national level to get any sort of recognition, any sort of national success, just because of the region that they're located in the state of Michigan and the Midwest here being kind of suffocated by the Big Ten, the MAC. We have multiple D2 conferences just within the state and in the Midwest. So it kind of leaves them kind of stuck with a lot of the leftover talent and just finding wherever they can get. NAIA, yep. And so it's really cool to kind of report on this. Albion actually finished the year ranked nationally in the AFCA coaches poll. They were ranked 25th. They were ranked 23rd going into the playoffs. And that's pretty cool to see that. I mean, in a playoff system in Division III where 32 teams make it, that they decided that Albion was better than 7 of the other schools that made the playoffs. So pretty cool to see that from the coaches nationally. And then to follow up on that, Albion had 2 players recognized by multiple outlets as All-Americans. Mitch Arenson, I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. I'm hoping I pronounced it right. Mitch Arenson, defensive end, was named second team All-American by the AFCA and second team All-American by the Associated Press. He was also named second team All-Region by D3Football.com, and he was the MIAA Defensive Player of the Year. And I believe I had this pulled up. He was a 4-time All-Conference selection. Yes, he was an all MIAA for 4 straight years. He ended the season as the conference sack leader and sack yards, 11.5 sacks, 81 sack yards. So he had an impressive season and had a couple honorable mention or second team All-American mentions there. They also had a wide receiver, Justin Thomas, who was named 4th team All-American by D3Football.com. He was the MIAA Offensive Player of the Year, and he was also an all-region, first team all-region selection by D3Football.com. He finished the season with 67 receptions, 1,113 yards receiving, 101 yards per game, 16.6 yards per catch, and 14 touchdowns. He actually set the Albion record for receptions and receiving yards in a season, which is very surprising. Very surprising.
That's a hell of a year, though.
Yeah, for only playing 11 games. That's very impressive.
Yeah. Why don't you give a shout out to the Michigan high schools? Mitch went to Holland Christian, and then the wideout went to
Justin Thomas.
Western. Justin Thomas. I was going to say James Thomas, so Justin Thomas.
Wall Lake Western, Holland Christian, getting some love here. All-American players, pretty cool. And it's also noteworthy that no other team in the MIAA had any All-American mentions by any outlets. So pretty cool that Albion had 2 players from their team.
They need to donate that D3 no money, baby. Start sending it back to your alma maters.
The D3 NIL money. Yeah, I'm sure they're rolling in the dough.
Mitch is going to be fighting with Kirk Cousins at Holland Christian.
I don't know if you guys have anything else to add after this. There's just one more thing I really wanted to add. I think for anyone listening to who is like, oh, Justin Thomas was named 4th team All-American. Like what kind of a distinction is that? I don't think people understand how many Division III football teams there are. If you're just a casual football fan, I think most casual football fans are aware that D2 and D3 exist. There are 250 Division III football schools compared to 130 in Division I. So there's nearly twice as many D3 football schools. So when you consider the incredibly large number of schools, the massive amount of competition, to be one of the 32 teams to make the playoffs out of 250 schools, and then to have 2 guys on your team recognized as All-American, even if it's 4th team, is to me definitely noteworthy and pretty cool and good for those 2 guys in Albion College.
Yeah, hats off to them. It's quite the achievement. That.
You guys have anything else you'd like to add on Albion College? Otherwise, we can move on.
Let's move on to these pick'ems.
They're going to be hot in the recruiting trail the next couple of weeks. I can tell you that. It's an accomplishment.
It is.
As we talk about, to be able to play 4 years of college football at any level, I mean, there's plenty of guys who go and play D3, but there's not very many who stick it out for 4 or 5 years. I mean, you can only get a medical red shirt at D3, but to stick it out for 4 or 5 years is an accomplishment because a lot of guys are not able to do that. They just aren't. So Albion College, the Britons, congratulations, MIAA champs, finished 25th on the coaches poll, made the playoffs, 2 All-Americans. Congrats. Awesome season. Looking forward to seeing what happens with the MIAA next year. All right, moving on. We have a bowl pick'em. We're going to talk bowls games here a little bit. There's actually to my right, to your left on the screen, I am watching San Diego State and UTSA. I picked the San Diego State Aztecs, and it looks like they are going to pull it out. So I'm very happy about that.
Won a bowl
Brady
game.
Hoke.
Brady Hoke.
12 win season.
12 win season. He's just on the screen. He just took the Gatorade bath. So very happy I picked them. Currently, This will update like right after I say it because the San Diego State game is not official yet. Currently in our bowl pick'em for Great Lakes State football, there's a 6-way tie for first place. That will change to a two-way tie momentarily between yours truly and A Tuck 1414 and Kevin Walsh, D Carter. What does GTD stand for? And Big Cat will be dropping to second place. And currently that is what it's looking
lots
like.
Of football remaining.
There is lots of football remaining. Obviously this is only the 11. This is the 12th game that has just turned final here. And actually, if I refresh it, is it final yet?
Yeah, it's final.
No, it's not refreshed on ESPN yet, though.
Oh, well, it's final.
The game is final, but ESPN does not have it updated yet. I can keep refreshing it. But so those are the standings as of right now. Everyone who is in our bowl pick'em, which I believe we have 56 currently, we'll keep updating this bowl pick'em week by week. We'll put out the leaderboard with this episode this week after 12 games after today. So let's move on here. We're going to move on to some bowl game news. Really briefly, some news from the Western Michigan Nevada game. Kory and Brett, I don't know if you guys want to touch on this a little bit. I did not have a chance to kind of look this up as much as you guys. I'm just aware of the initial surface level news that Nevada's quarterback has opted not to play, one of the probably best mid-major quarterbacks in the country. We'll be sitting that game. It is the Quicken Lanes Bowl that is in Detroit, Ford Field, December 27th. And Kory and I will be going to this game. We are looking forward to probably doing some live tweeting, some live updates as we will be at this bowl
cooler
game.
Of beer on a Monday morning.
Yes, a cooler of beer. This is an 11 a.m. kickoff, so it'll be an
drunk by
interesting game.
10.
Yeah, good Lord. Anything you guys want to add on this news? Obviously, Western Michigan being one of our beautiful Michigan mid-major schools, that's probably going to look in their favor. Originally, I was, I don't want to give some hot takes here for our bowl pick'em, as you could still make a change for this one. I originally was going to pick Nevada, but now I'm not so sure anymore.
I was just about to say that it's going to be a shootout. It was already going to be a shootout, but with Nevada,
you've been watching the bowl game so far. Every MAC school has proven they're not very good defensively,
other than Toledo, who wasn't very good offensively. But no, I think that game was going to be very good that we were going to go to, and now it's going to be kind of average because Nevada's best player is not playing. But it's on a Monday and we don't have to work, so I'd rather be doing that anyway.
I think it brings the competition a little bit closer. Carson Strong, quarterback for Nevada, he's a top 5 NFL prospect, so I don't blame him one bit for sitting out. I don't think him playing against Western is going to change his projection in the draft whatsoever, and all he really is going to risk is injury. He is probably going to miss out on the PS5 bowl gift that he's going to get, but he'll be able to afford many of those in the future. But I think the Broncos are going to pull ahead in this one. I heard earlier today, I was listening to a Michigan podcast. I can't remember who it was. But they're just talking about the bowl games in general. And there's a lot of truth to it. You get a lot of these smaller Big Ten teams that make a bowl game. I mean, you look at, or even like BYU, they had a great season and they ended up losing to UAB. But UAB going into that game, like them winning a bowl game is huge for their program. And yes. I think they
didn't have a program 3 years ago.
They didn't. Yeah, they got canceled and then brought back. But if
crazy story.
If you look at like a Nevada, I mean, Nevada's got a pretty nice program, same with Western, but I think both these teams are truly excited to be playing in the bowl game. And like you mentioned earlier, it's Monday, you're not working, nobody's got anything going on. I expect there to be a few Broncos there to cheer on their ball team. So it definitely plays a role with Carson Strong sitting out. But it's just another guy on the list sitting out a bowl game, and I think we can credit Christian McCaffrey for starting this trend. He was the first person to, well-known person I can think of to start the trend of.
Yeah, it seems to be a more noteworthy, newsworthy trend in recent years. I mean, people were doing it before, but not this widespread, for sure. I think Jake Butts, like nationally covered injury also really accelerated this.
Yep.
For sure.
After Jake Butt said, I'm not going to sit out because I'm not a puss, and then blows his knee out. So,
yeah, I think that was definitely something that kind of took the cake for a lot of people.
Well, they say if you ask him if he was upset that he played, his answer would be no. So, I mean,
well, and respect to him for saying that, but at the same time, I'm sure, he would also in close circles with people be like, yeah, it really sucks that I don't have an NFL career.
Yeah, but I mean, you never know. He could have blown out his ACL in the NFL too.
True,
he did.
I mean, he did. He already had one ACL injury at Michigan. This was the second ACL injury at Michigan, so his chances were very high he was going to get injured again. I mean, that's
really?
Case.
He had two.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I didn't realize that he blew his knee out twice in the NFL. That's why he was done.
Yeah, but
you need double knee replacements.
It's an example, but I mean, you look at all the guys that do play in the bowl game and don't get hurt. I mean, you look at the percentages; it's probably less than 0.5% that you're going to get hurt in your bowl game, like a career-ending injury. So I don't know,
probably like 1%.
To me, it would be hard to watch all your boys even practicing with sweat, blood, and tears, and to sit and watch them play a football game. But who am I? I've never been in that situation, so I'm not going to criticize.
I don't think I could do it. I would have played.
Yeah.
It's hard to say because I had this conversation. I can't remember who I just had this conversation with this last weekend, but I was talking with someone about how, and it was someone older, a boomer, and boomer generation. I can't think of who it was, about how it's really hard for me to stop and try and imagine myself in the shoes of someone who has an opportunity to play in the NFL, because I never had that opportunity. So like to stop and be like, yeah, I'm a first round draft pick, or I just have an opportunity to be drafted in general, and to risk an injury in a game that does not matter. I mean, we've already talked about this on the podcast, and I will continue to preach this as long as we do this podcast. Bowl games do not matter. They don't mean anything. And again, I'm not going to take it away from any seniors who are not going to be NFL stars. Obviously, if you are a senior, looking for just another opportunity to play, it's pretty cool to play in a bowl game. You get a lot of cool stuff. It's money for your conference, money for your school, national profile, national, spotlight, and you get to play football one more time with your boys. But at the same time, in terms of like the grand scheme of things, in terms of championships, postseason, they mean nothing. I mean, who won the Cheez-It Bowl in 2018 does not mean anything. We will continue to preach this on this podcast because we all kind of agree on this. I would love to see bowl games turned into playoff sites, turn it into a legit playoff system, make winning games in the regular season matter, winning conference championships matter, winning 7 or 8 games or 9 games matter. Teams that win 6 games should not be playing in the postseason, flat out. I'm sorry. I just think it's all about money. It's all about sponsorships and money. That's the only reason it exists. And it's fun. It is fun. Don't get me wrong. As a football fan, it is fun to watch more football. It is fun to do our bowl pick'em and things like that. But just in my opinion, in the grand scheme of things, in terms of national championships and things like that, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't matter.
Agreed.
We have one more bowl news topic we would like to hit on here in terms of state of Michigan, and that's Eastern Michigan. As of tonight, this is Tuesday night, we're recording this, December 21st, is that what today is? 21st. Eastern Michigan has played their bowl game already. They are the first. All 5 Division I teams made a bowl game from the state of Michigan. Eastern's the first one to play. They got destroyed by Liberty 56-20. And on this podcast, hopefully you were listening. Some of you who are joined our bowl pick'em obviously did not listen to our podcast because we unanimously picked Liberty. All 3 of us discussed how impressive Liberty has been since they have joined FBS. They have only been an FBS school for 4 seasons now, one of them being a COVID year. And in the COVID year last year, they went 10-1. They won a bowl game. They upset Coastal Carolina. And actually, they've been to 3 straight bowl games and won all 3 bowl games in only 4 years of being an FBS school. So, and they have a very talented, likely first round. A lot of outlets are calling him a first round draft pick quarterback, Malik Willis, who had a hell of a season. hell of a season for Liberty. So there's a lot of, NFL insiders. I was reading some articles. A lot of people were saying, yeah, this guy has a chance to be a high draft pick. He's very talented, what a lot of teams are looking for. One of those kind of overlooked hidden gems in college football this year, especially because Liberty's an independent. So they don't really get a lot of national attention outside of those few high profile non-conference games. Well, they don't have a conference games they played with, Ole Miss, Army, Syracuse, I guess. Yeah, Syracuse, I guess.
He also, he's not surrounded by NFL guys by any means. I mean, it's kind of a one-man show from that standard.
Good. They were saying the Lions were going to try to go after him for a minute there, but then they've kind of – the quarterback class is pretty soft this year, so that's kind of dwindled away. So, speaking of the Lions.
Is that all you guys want to talk about with Eastern Michigan? Going to move on.
The Lions won the game. The Lions won the game.
Kory. The Lions won again. The Lions win again. All we do is fucking win.
Okay, but to the Lions' credit,
shout out to G-Mac Cash, man. Put out another hot song after the Lions winning another game. Going to the Super Bowl off of one win.
That guy's going to be busy the next couple of weeks.
They keep winning, man. They keep winning.
I mean, Dan Campbell's the guy, though. He's winning with nobody.
Dan Campbell is the guy, full stop.
Winning with nobody. We have two offensive linemen out. Jonah Jackson didn't play. And actually,
didn't they have like a dozen total players out?
Again, yeah. And Craig Reynolds from Cootstown out here running like.
Yeah, Division II running back. Dominate. 112 yards?
112 led the NFL in rushing yards last week. Tell me this, though. Did we finally found our like diamond in the rough running back? You know how there's always like that one guy who's really good.
Just comes out of nowhere.
But he played like a low-level D1 or D2 or like NAIA or JUCO or something weird. And they just are really good out of nowhere. Like, did we finally find that?
Lions seem to have a lot of these guys that sprout late in the year. I don't know.
Brett's still a pessimistic fan.
Yeah, well, I mean, who can't be?
Right.
Wait, the Lions? You're
just
not
be happy.
What's wrong with the Lions?
I mean, the Lions.
We dominated.
They did dominate. I mean, they're starting to find their groove a little bit. They're 2-3-1 in their last 6 games, with one of those. One of the losses being to the Bears, the last second field goal on Thanksgiving. The other one being a tie against the Steelers. That if we probably would have still had Matt Prater, we would have won that game.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you can say that they are trending up. Unfortunately, I think they're going to play themselves out of a first round pick. But I will say that I think finishing strong means more to a franchise than getting a first round pick. I mean, they're still destined for the top 5. The draft, although there's not a lot of quarterbacks, I think that you can find a real dynamic player in the top 5. Personally, I wish hope they'd get Aiden Hutchinson, just based on his demeanor and the motor that he has, but I'm sure they'll find a way to get a good pick. I think like we mentioned, Dan Campbell is the guy. I don't care what anybody says. But this team in a way kind of resembles the Lions team in 2010. It was Jim Schwartz's second year with the program, Matt Stafford's second year with the Lions, and they started out 2-4, and they won their last 4 games to end 6-10. And then they ended up carrying that momentum into 2011, where they ended up going 10-6 and making the playoffs. So I think that the trajectory is there, and the players. I mean, you watch the post game locker room videos.
They love him.
They love him, dude.
So
Jared Goff, when they won the last second touchdown, the first thing Jared Goff did was he ran to Dan Campbell and bear hugged him.
He did.
The first thing he did.
That's not because they love each other, though. I've heard there's been some beef in the locker room. So I think that was more of like a look what I did, like go fuck yourself. But
you really read it that way?
Yes, I've read multiple things saying like they've had some.
Yeah, but dude, come on, you're a football. We're all football guys. We know that like an outside perspective for any locker room.
You can butt heads in the locker room with your coach, but at the end of the day, he loves his coach, and he displayed that after that win.
No, I agree. They all love him.
To credit Goff through the last 4 games has the 4th highest passer rating in the NFL, only trailing Aaron Rodgers, Matt Stafford, and Russell Wilson. He has a 105 passer rating in the last 4 games with 9 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. I mean,
his stat line against
impressive.
the Cardinals is really impressive. I mean, he had a heck of a
He
stat line.
He is not throwing to any like the Lions wide receivers wouldn't crack the top 4 on 95% of the NFL teams.
Who are these guys? Like,
and they don't even have
I've never heard of.
Their starting running back is out. Kory mentioned the offensive line that's out. They're making something out of nothing. And
granted, he sucked the first 11 games of the year, so I'm not going to.
He did, but I think there was a lot of kinks that were getting worked out in the beginning of the year.
I think it's a credit to Campbell.
He was under a lot of pressure. I mean, he really was. I don't care what anybody says.
You have a better arm than he did at the beginning of the year.
I mean, the arm that he has now is the same he had earlier this year. What do you have to do? Just injure his oblique to throw better? Is that what it took?
Did you not see the one touchdown that he just threw a missile straight down the seam of the field and Amon-Ra St. Brown just snagged it and we were good to go. I don't know.
I think something we haven't even brought up yet is they beat a good team. Arizona Cardinals, man, we're not a slouch.
That was the first time a one-win team in NFL history had beat a double-digit win team by double digits. Which is
in NFL history?
In NFL history, ever.
Not just the points.
I did not see that stat. I did not see that.
No, it was the points. It was by double digits.
Oh, I thought it was just beat a double digit.
But double digits is even more impressive.
It is more impressive. I think it's a credit to Dan Campbell, man. I mean, with what this team has, they have nothing. That the fact that they're finding a way to win games and win a game, blow out a good team like this is just a credit to what he's done with the locker room, the culture there. I worry going forward because I feel like we got a taste of success under Caldwell. Again, that's up for debate, but he was winning games. He went to 2 playoffs, and I don't know. For some reason, management decided that he wasn't the guy, even though he was winning games. We had this conversation, Kory, I think in episode 1. I worry about management. I worry about the people at the top. I think the one constant through all the failure and misery with the Lions is the people at the top have remained the same.
We got a new we got a new president. Sheila Ford Hamp is new. She's only been there about 3 years now. She does come from the Ford family, but she's been around the building a very long time. But she's new. And all I'll say about that is that she full-fledged straddled Dan Campbell after that first win. So either they're scrumping or the fires are burning in Allen Park, Michigan right now.
Turning this into an NC-17 podcast again.
I said the fires are burning. I didn't say anything naughty, but I like Dan Campbell. I think Jared Goff sucks, but what he's doing he's making pie out of shit, which is pretty damn impressive.
Cow pies?
No, shit pies.
Lion pies.
I almost made this NC-17.
I can imagine what you're going to say. All right.
All right. And when you punch us back, we're going to smile at you. And when you knock us down, we're going to get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off. All right. We're going to stand up. And then it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down. All right. And on the way up, we're going to take your other kneecap and we're going to get up. And then it's going to take 3 shots to get us down. And when we do, we're going to take another hunk out of you before long.
I love this guy, man. I love it. I can't wait to see what they do. I got 2 first-round picks this year. It's going to be incredible. It's fun. It's fun.
If Dan Campbell hears this, I can bite the shit out of a kneecap. I'm only like 5'11". I was the shortest center in the GLIAC, but I will bite the shit out of a kneecap. Hit my line.
And when you get up, you're going to take another hunk out of the other kneecap.
So they follow up at the Falcons, who are 6-8, and then they're at the Seahawks, and the Seahawks are currently 5-9. So they do follow up with 2 teams with losing records, however, both on the road. How are we feeling about those next 2 road games against losing record teams here, below 500 teams?
You called me out the other day, but I think they keep winning, baby.
Do you think they win 3 straight?
No.
Or 4 straight? You think they win? They beat the Cardinals and they win 3 more, win 4 straight to end the year?
No. We don't beat Green Bay, but we beat.
You don't think they beat the Packers at home? You don't think they sneak a home win against the Packers?
I think
the only
it's
way
the last game of the year.
I think plays.
Yeah, I think the Packers are going to be sitting some people.
That's what I'm saying.
Maybe then, maybe.
The Packers at that point, I'm assuming, if they're not already locked in, pretty much locked into the playoffs. I mean,
Aaron Rodgers.
They are
will
11
play
and
just
3.
To say fuck. Aaron Rodgers will play just to beat the Lions, and then he'll just
really.
laugh.
You don't think they would sit him?
The Lions.
Well, they will.
The Lions had no chance to beat the Cardinals. They're a double-digit underdog, which is pretty unheard of in the NFL. So, I mean, to say that can they win out? Yeah, they most certainly can. But they could also lose out too. It's just just kind of the team that they are right now. And we might not even have Jared Goff playing this weekend with this COVID situation, which don't even get me started on this situation. That's a whole nother segment where we could talk about that. But if I don't know, it just depends on what Lions team rolls out. I mean, it's a bunch of nobodies that are playing for jobs next year. So I think that's part of the reason why they won last week.
Isn't it crazy to think that they're 5 plays away from being 7-6?
Mm-hmm. But that's
5 plays, including like 4 field goals or 3 field goals, 4 field goals.
That's the NFL, though. It's a game of possession in the NFL.
No, that's the Lions.
That was
that's
like we brought
Lions.
up last week or 2 weeks ago. Michigan was a play away from beating Michigan State.
Blunders.
All right, you guys have anything else that you guys want to add on the Lions? Detroit Lie Downs, our beautiful Lions here.
Let's go talk to the titty boy.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap up here part 1 of the podcast. Before we move on to our guest, we will be bringing on a Mr. Kory Aronauts, who we all played with in high school, who is a Ferris State alum, was at Hills, or excuse me, Jesus Christ, it's late, at Ferris State University for 5 years, 2012 to 2016, playing defensive line. So we're going to bring him on and kind of talk about his career as well as him roughing. He is now a high school ref, and then his alma mater winning the national championship. So we'll be talking to him in a moment here. So check that episode out, part 2, after you listen to this one. When you're done listening to this one, go over to Twitter, follow us at GLSF Ball, BALL, and then follow us on Instagram, Great Lakes State Football. Head over to Apple or Spotify podcast, wherever your preferred podcast store is. Leave us a 5-star review. Leave us a nice comment, nice little anecdote about how much you love us.
Give it to us, baby.
And then go over to YouTube, subscribe on our YouTube channel, Great Lakes State Football. Like, share, subscribe, comment on those videos. We love it. Please give us some love. Follow us along, man, for everything State of Michigan football. Stay along for the ride. Check us out here, part 2, episode 5, if you want to listen to our conversation with Kory Aronauts. And as always, go green, go Chargers.
Merry Christmas.